You know, I'm probably going to abandon most of my presentation. There was no way I was going to stick to 20 seconds a slide anyway. So, what I was going to talk about was a lot of how we're trying to bring together a lot of the aspects of what we discussed today. You know, the technology, a lean process, which really creates this what I call sustainable enterprise. But I'll sort of summarize the real quick summary of what I was going to get to was, you know, we're pretty jazzed about the technology. It's neat, and it's changing our business, and we're saving a lot of money, so it's great. What I want to talk about more was, as I go through this, is something I've learned as I've gone through this sort of lean education over the years. And it's a term that I think is a fantastic term that I always try to remind myself of that they use is a voice of the customer. The voice of the customer, that the lean process is driven first by listening to the customer and doing only what that customer needs, and you only do what is needed to achieve what the customer desires. And so the whole process is lean by default because you drive out the waste, because you're not doing things that you want to do, you're doing things only because the customer is requiring it. It's only the value add is defined by the customer. And it's funny, you know, the other problem I have is in addition to talking too much, is my ADD kicks in, and you know, I was looking at the inscription above the stage, and of course I had to figure out what does that mean. And it turns out that in translated it says the Roman state is founded on its traditions and heroes, and construction is founded on its traditions and heroes. Too much so. You know, the Roman state collapsed because it was looking too much backwards. It was too focused on those traditions and heroes. We have to bury our dead to a great extent and move on. And that's what that again is where, you know, we're 103-year-old company, and we have a lot of those traditions. We have a lot of those heroes that we have to move past. And too easily we get wrapped up in just the coolness of what we're doing and the story. And I'll air a little dirty laundry in the sense that an assignment previous to this was we had a startup company. We're going to have a startup company that had this new reinforced concrete. We bought a patent. It was really actually it was like Turner all over again, because we started as a concrete contractor here in the city. And so we had this new reinforced concrete, ultra thin, high strength, 15 to 18,000 psi, highly ductile. It was really cool. It was a cool material. We played with it for a year. We spent way too much money trying to just develop it. And we went out into the marketplace, you know, a year and a half into spending a decent amount of money, and nobody would buy it. Nobody wanted it. We couldn't figure out why. We're like, oh, this is really cool, though. It's a neat concrete product. Why? And we realized we had a solution for a problem that didn't exist. It was neat, but it didn't do anything. Actually, it was just a material. You know, if you look at a building as a product, I wonder often how, if we look enough at the customer, if you will, and how they consume that product, how they use it. I saw a study recently that said that if you increase the productivity of the workers inside of a building by 15%, that over 10 years, that increased productivity actually will pay for the cost of the design and construction of that entire building by just increasing the productivity of the workers inside the building. And I often wonder that we don't necessarily start with that premise of looking at ultimately how buildings are being consumed, and that we're maybe making a product that you know, isn't being used to its greatest benefit. I'll give you a great example. We have an interiors division, and our interiors division lives on the fact that once we finish the core shell of a building and we fit it out, that the client comes in and changes everything, and we completely redo the fit out of the building. We're doing gangbusters right now. It's unbelievable. But to me that says, well, why? How come we're coming in and having to sort of redevelop that space? And it's a function of the time it takes to develop the building. It's so long. The business conditions change. So what we're trying to get to is more of an agile construction company where we're constantly responding to the customer's needs, bringing in, again, new technologies, new tools and processes, that sort of thing. so that we can respond as quickly as possible to changes. You know, I have some case studies up here on projects where we are seeing some great results, bringing all these tools together to really address the customer's needs. One in particular I like to talk about is Mills Peninsula Hospital. It's about a $420 million project out in San Francisco. And the client, because of OSHPD requirements in California and technology changes, the client created this deadline that they called the last responsible moment, at which they had to make decisions about equipment purchases and system changes. And of course, they went way past the last responsible moment, and in spite of us telling them otherwise. But they made that, it was a business decision. They wanted to wait to make sure that the technology, they were keeping current with technology, and that they were incorporating the latest cutting edge requirements OSHPD requirements and such into the building. And because of, we actually used Greg's, we were using Last Planner system, which is one of the reverse phase scheduling tools that the Lean Construction Institute has. So we had a much more collaborative environment with the client, with ourselves, with the designers. We were using the technology, which is BIM in particular, and we were able to absorb $20 million in changes. We were 3/4 of the way through construction. We absorbed $20 million in changes and are still meeting the schedule completion, which to me is which is fantastic that you can get to that point where, again, you can respond to the change of a customer's needs and the market demands, if you will, and still achieve that end goal. So you create that, you still achieve the predictable outcome, which we unfortunately too often aren't able to do. So in general, again, I think the place where we're going as a company, this enterprise that looks at taking advantage of all these great tools, I think we have to marry them up with the right process, but ultimately we have to listen to the customer and what the customer wants so that we can use those to the end, which is satisfying that need that the customer has. And so I apologize again. There's the case studies of different projects, and we can talk about I can talk about efficiencies and productivity all day. But one of the things I thought was a really interesting idea was again this: get away from those traditions. Listen to that voice of the customer, and let everything else be pulled by that voice of the customer. And that sort of gets you outside your box and starts making you think about why are we doing some of the things we're doing, and maybe we should really challenge those assumptions. And that's my new presentation.